Hello, and welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion with hypersensitivities. This video is going to cover the type 3 hypersensitivities. Again, this one is going to be IgM or IgE, or not IgE, IgG mediated, okay, for the antibodies. It has some similarities to the type 2 hypersensitivity. The main difference here is you tend to have an antigen-antibody complex that is formed that isn't cleared, okay? The antigen-antibody complex in the type 2 reaction was cleared from the system, okay? Because this isn't cleared, this now stimulates an inflammatory response, okay? So how the type 2 or type 3 differs from type 2, one, you've got an inflammatory response associated with it, and the other is that the complex tends to be deposited into a tissue. Whereas with type 2, we were looking at individual cells that were impacted. This one we're looking at tissues, okay? So what ends up happening, if we've got our green here being our antigen, okay? And then let's use the blue. We've got our antibody here in blue. What ends up happening is these all end up cross-linking to form a larger complex, all right? Typically, this complex is circulating within the body. The complex then sits down in a tissue, okay? And then once it sits down in the tissue, oh goodness, I did not leave myself enough room to spell the word inflammation right there. So we'll put it here. All right, inflammation happens, okay? And it's that chronic inflammation that results in tissue damage, or tissue destruction, all right? Our examples here with type 3 hypersensitivity rheumatoid arthritis is one example, all right? And in this case, our antigen is called RANA, okay? And that RANA ends up being deposited into synovial joints, okay? And that chronic inflammation that is associated with that is what results in the rheumatoid arthritis destroying the joint, okay? Now, rheumatoid arthritis destroys the joint in a different way than osteoarthritis does. Osteoarthritis is a wear and tear kind of thing. The individual tends to be much older. They've got joints where the cartilage has worn out, and you've got bone up against bone. Now, with rheumatoid arthritis, you can also have some issues associated with the bone and the destruction of the joint, but what ends up happening with rheumatoid arthritis is you end up getting a type of plaque formed on the surface of the joint, and that's what causes the bulging and the swelling associated with the joint, in addition to the inflammation, okay? But if an individual has rheumatoid arthritis, if you do an MRI of the affected joint, whether it be a hand, a shoulder, a knee, on the MRI, you will see the surface of that plaque there in the joint, and that is one of the indications of rheumatoid arthritis or how it can be diagnosed, okay? Rheumatoid arthritis is an example of an autoimmune disease, all right, because you've got an improper immune reaction happening here, okay? So rheumatoid arthritis is one of our examples. The other example is systemic lupus. And I always have to worry about spelling this because it's one of the longer words. I believe that's right. Systemic lupus erythematosus, abbreviated SLE. Absolutely fine for you to refer to this as SLE on any test they give you, okay? So SLE, or systemic lupus, okay, our autoantibody in this case is against either DNA or RNA components, okay? So something that makes up the nucleotide or makes up that double-stranded DNA helix or single-stranded RNA molecule, that's what's being recognized as foreign. So systemic, the reason this is systemic is because it's recognizing the individual's own DNA as being foreign, okay? So systemic lupus tends to have a myriad of symptoms associated with it that are listed in your textbook. You still want to go over those symptoms for the exam, but those autoantibodies essentially activate, again, inflammation. And you end up getting tissues that are destroyed due to the chronic inflammation associated with systemic lupus, okay? Common areas that are targeted, the glomerulus in the kidney, the skin is another one. There's a very pronounced, what's known as a butterfly rash on the face that can occur. The rash appears to be in the shape of a butterfly. And then there also can be neurological issues associated with it, okay? It just depends on where the autoantibodies happen to be destroying tissue. And with individuals who have lupus, the symptoms can move from system to system depending on where the DNA is revealed and the antibodies recognize that as foreign, okay? With systemic lupus, it's much more common in women as compared to men or females. And that's going to be true of any of our autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases do tend to be more prevalent in women than men. It's not entirely clear why that is. But one of the things that I find interesting, rheumatoid arthritis can strike individuals in their 20s or teens. One of the things that's interesting about rheumatoid arthritis is women who have rheumatoid arthritis, if they become pregnant, their rheumatoid arthritis symptoms go away. And part of that reason is because when women are pregnant, you are slightly immunodeficient during pregnancy because you don't want your body to recognize that developing fetus as being foreign. So something in that mechanism actually relieves the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. It's not understood yet what that is or how we could potentially target that. But if that could be targeted, that would represent a potential treatment for rheumatoid arthritis. Okay? This is why understanding how the cellular reactions that happen associated with disease states are important. You can have targets for therapies that are developed when you understand what's going wrong in the body. All right? So type 3 hypersensitivity, we're going to wrap up here. Next video, we'll cover the type 4 hypersensitivity. If you have questions, please let me know.